18. We can all be accused of the same thing. It's a lie. It's a lie that we will all always be accused. I miss you. I dedicated myself to relaxing. 14. Deo, crimes 5. You lost count. The Craftman went crazy. He almost fainted upon learning of his sentence. But what is all this about? Stay until the end of the video and find out. Before starting, leave your registration with the like button and subscribe to our stories. They will surely catch you. Now, activate the bell so we can begin. The day the Craftman heard the sentence condemning him to spend the rest of his days behind bars, a mixture of tumultuous emotions took hold of him. Throughout his life, he had defied the rules and stood up to the law with courage and determination. But now, for the first time, he found himself powerless against the force of the judicial system when the judge pronounced the sentence. A heavy silence fell over the courtroom. Craftman, staring down at the floor, could hardly believe what he was hearing. His hands, which had once gripped weapons and administered justice in their own way, were now handcuffed, and his fate was sealed. Rage and frustration mingled inside him as he listened to the judge's words. How could it be that after everything he had done for his gang, after all his loyalty and sacrifice, he was now sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a cold, dark cell? As the reality of his situation sank in, Craftman felt a deep sense of loss and despair. He had dedicated his life to protecting his people and fighting for what he believed in. But now he found himself alone, facing an uncertain and lonely future. However, in the midst of the despair, a spark of determination ignited in Craftman's eyes, despite the harshness of his actions. His sentence refused to give in. He knew that his life had taken an irreversible turn, but he still believed he could find a way to redeem himself and do some good, even from behind bars. As he was escorted out of the courtroom, Craftman promised himself that he would do everything he could to make sense of his new reality. He knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of despair and discouragement, but he also knew he still had the ability to make a difference, even in the most difficult circumstances. In the days and weeks that followed, Craftman immersed himself in his new life in prison. As he adapted to his environment, he began looking for ways to make a positive difference, even from behind bars. He organized classes for inmates, sharing his skills and knowledge with those willing to learn. He helped mediate disputes between prisoners, using his experience in resolving conflicts. To keep the peace in prison, he became a mentor to the younger members of the prison, offering guidance and support in a difficult environment. As time went on, Craftman began to feel a sense of purpose in his life in prison. Despite the limitations of his situation, he found a way to make a difference, to be someone others could trust and find comfort and support in. Even though his sentence had kept him from physical freedom, Craftman found new freedom in his ability to do good. Despite the circumstances, through his actions, he showed that even in the most difficult circumstances, one can still find a way to make a difference and leave a lasting legacy. The moment Craftman was sentenced, the courtroom was filled with tension as Craftman's sentence was handed down. The greatest gang leader, Craftman, a man with a hard look, and scars that told stories of violence and survival on the streets of El Salvador. He listened calmly as the judge read the sentence. However, the atmosphere in the courtroom was different. Craftman's family members, sitting in the front row, were visibly affected by the news that Craftman's brothers, who had grown up alongside him in poverty and gang violence, were about to receive. They looked at the judge in disbelief as he announced the sentence. For them, Craftman was more than a brother. He was a leader, a protector, someone they admired and feared at the same time. The news of his conviction was like a blow to the stomach, leaving him devastated and filled with pain and confusion. Craftman's mother, an elderly woman with her face marked by years of suffering and worry, wept silently as she listened to the sentence. For her, the news was devastating. Despite Craftman's mistakes and problems, she had always loved and had held out hope that one day, the news of his conviction would change his life. It was like a final blow, a confirmation that his worst fears had come true. Craftman's wife, A.F., strong and determined, she had shared her life with him for years. She was also present in the courtroom. For her, The news of Craftman's conviction was a crushing blow. Despite the problems and difficulties they had faced together, she had always held out hope that one day they would have a better life. Craftman's conviction was like a deep cut to her heart, a confirmation that her dreams of a better life together had vanished forever. Craftman's children, who had grown up seeing their father as a hero, an indomitable leader who fought against injustice and protected his family, were also present in the courtroom. For them, the news of their father's conviction was like a blow to the soul. Despite everything, they had always admired their father and hoped to follow in his footsteps. Craftman's conviction was a painful reminder of the fragility of life and of the consequences of the decisions we made in the courtroom. The silence was overwhelming as the judge pronounced the final sentence. Craftman's sentencing was met with a mixture of sadness, disbelief, and resignation by his family. For them, the news marked a turning point in their lives. From that moment on, they would have to face the reality of Craftman's absence and the consequences of his actions. Despite the pain and sadness, Craftman's family remained united, finding comfort and strength in love and mutual support despite the circumstances. They continued to believe in the possibility of redemption and the hope for a better future. Craftman's sentencing was a hard blow, but it was also a moment of reflection and renewed determination to move forward no matter what obstacles stood in his way. What is Craftman's current life like in prison? In prison, Craftman found a new purpose by participating in rehabilitation and education programs. He began to study daily and work on his rehabilitation, seeking to redeem himself and find a way to contribute positively, even from behind bars. His positive attitude and determination impressed many of the inmates and prison guards. They began to see him differently, despite the difficulties and challenges he faced in prison. Craftman found solace in literature and writing. He began to write about his experiences and reflections, putting his deepest thoughts and desires for redemption to paper. His writings became a source of inspiration for other inmates who found in his words a light of hope amidst the darkness of prison. Craftman also found solace in religion, seeking redemption through faith and prayer. He spent hours in the prison chapel, reflecting on his life and seeking the spiritual peace he so longed for. His faith gave him the strength to move forward, even in the most difficult moments. As the years passed, Craftman's life in prison began to change. He became an example of rehabilitation and change for many of the inmates around him, inspiring the prison authorities, who began to consider him a unique case of successful rehabilitation. By the way, if you enjoy the video, we invite you to give us a like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Continuing, what are the 3 most difficult events that have happened to Craftman in prison? Number 1. Attempted riot. Confrontation with other inmates. One of the most difficult events that Craftman experienced in prison was an attempted riot in which he was involved during a period of unrest. In prison, some inmates attempted to take control of certain areas, which resulted in a violent confrontation between rival factions. Craftman, who held some influence among the inmates due to his past as a gang leader, found himself caught in the middle of the chaos. Although he initially tried to stay out of the conflict, he was soon forced to take sides when his life was in danger. He faced moments of intense violence and had to make difficult decisions to protect himself and those he considered allies in prison. This event left a lasting impression on Craftman, who was forced to confront the brutality and violence that had been such an integral part of his gang life. It made him realize that even in prison, he could not escape the consequences of his past actions, and that he would have to constantly fight to survive in such a hostile environment. Number 2. Revelations about the fate of former gang members. Another event that deeply affected Craftman in prison was the revelation of the fate of some of his former gang members throughout his. Over the years, many of his gang members have been captured or killed, and Craftman had been forced to confront the reality that his actions had had devastating consequences for those he once considered family. However, in prison, Craftman received news that shook him to his core. He learned that some of his former gang members had been killed in gang vendettas or clashes with authorities. These revelations led him to question the path he had chosen in life and reflect on the true human cost of his actions. For Craftman, this news was a painful reminder of the lives lost and families torn apart due to gang violence. It made him realize that even though he was in prison, he still had a chance to make peace with his past and try to redeem himself in some way. Number 3. Confrontation with his own mortality. The third most powerful event that Craftman experienced in prison was a direct confrontation with his own mortality in a violent incident. Inside the prison, Craftman was seriously injured and found himself on the verge of death. During this time, he had to face the possibility that his life was coming to an end and reflect on the legacy this event would leave behind. It was a moment of profound introspection for Craftman, who was forced to confront his deepest fears and regrets. He realized that despite everything he had done in his life, he still had the opportunity to change and make peace with himself and those he had hurt. Thus, we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to give us a like so we can continue making more videos like this. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss out none of our new videos. I wish you a great day until next time.